Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Eating Peace this week. I'm just back from being gone for basically an entire week on the East Coast. And as you probably know, I live in the West Coast. I don't even know the East Coast that super well. I always find it like visiting a foreign area, maybe not quite foreign country, but it's always a unique and interesting experience. I love exploring. I feel very excited, just like when you're going on a trip, an adventure to someplace very unusual and different. I have not spent much time on the East Coast in my life. So off I went there, and fantastic time because we're staying in a big, beautiful Amish-style lodge to do the work of Byron Katie for 3 days and facilitate a retreat there. It was just simply on the work of Byron Katie, which, as you know, is my favorite form of self-inquiry. Most powerful, simple way I've ever found to inquire and look at your own mindset. It's really about working with your mind, changing your mind, transforming your mind so you see things in a different way. And I love those 4 questions and the turnarounds, because isn't that what we want to do when it comes to our eating behavior? Compulsive eating, weight, feeling upset or frightened about certain foods, all the different thoughts and feelings and ideas we have about food that are floating and running like I love that computer references for the mind, like you've got a virus or something that's kind of running in the background. Virus might sound kind of strong because it's, I think, easier to fix than an actual virus in computer world is. It's not so frightening. It's not so damaging. Yes, it can be very much feeling that way on a daily basis when you eat, and you obsess about food and eating, and you look at yourself in the mirror and you think that I look awful. I'm disgusted by myself, that kind of thing. Of course, that's very damaging, but I don't think it takes moving mountains the way we think of it sometimes to get past that and begin to understand it and slow it down and not take that virus so seriously. It is a story. These things are a story about body, food, and emotions that get all mixed up together and swirled together in a big package and make it so that we've got the glasses on all the time that say, be afraid, be worried, get upset, this isn't working, I don't know what to do. So, I love having the work there, and what I said to all the people gathering there to do the work together is, if you have any specific questions about food and eating, I suffered so terribly from food and eating, the reaction to food and eating, beliefs about weight and thinness and food and eating, that I am willing to answer any questions about that if that's one of the things you notice in your life and one of the reasons you're here. What's interesting is, unless we make it as a specific topic so people don't feel so alone and so embarrassed, most people don't really want to look at that as a direct issue. It feels also very shameful to be admitting and sharing and openly talking about yourself having problems with stopping eating, starting eating, and your perspective about weight and body image and what you should or shouldn't look like. We just feel awfully ashamed about that. It's almost like we have all these troubles and worries with it, and then we're also on top of that worried about being worried or upset that we are concerned. So, double shame. However, what I wanted to share is that a few people did privately ask me questions about food and eating, and I wanted to share one of them very, very simple with you today that might be helpful. One person said that it seems like when certain foods are really, really tasty, and she began eating when she was hungry, when it's really tasty to her, she's enjoying her food, something in her just doesn't want to stop, even though she knows she's getting full. She just doesn't want to stop. So there's sort of a go speed racer kind of a feeling of chomping and eating and wanting to take it in, and almost not necessarily ignoring the body, even numbing out to the body, not even feeling what's there. Like waking up a few minutes later and going, oh, what have I done? As if you've been in a trance. It's interesting because you are there the whole time, of course. And some of us even talk to ourselves. So we really are there. But she was noticing that that was happening. And then she would feel very, very nauseated, super nauseated. And I just thought that I would mention something that may seem very, very simple, but interesting to consider. The speed and urgency and drive is like an animal, right? It is like how a dog would be chewing and chomping at, like on a bone or on prey, like how like a lion would be attacking an antelope on the African safari, right? So the thing to notice is that we are animals, mammals, and that we have sort of a drive like that. I mean, everyone knows what it's like to quote unquote lose your temper, like have an emotional space overwhelm you because of feeling an intense sense of wanting to survive or being threatened. When it gets down to this core place, it's like, I'm threatened in this moment. Now, it doesn't seem like we're threatened when we're just eating. When we have a big, huge amount of food in front of us and we feel like we can't stop. But there is kind of a sense of motion and movement in it that doesn't come to a rest. There's a natural place that was wanting to rest on the inside where hunger is over and we're satiated and done. And if we were just following that, being with that, then this drive thing wouldn't be there. So what is it? It is definitely mind. Just one thing to be aware of. It's part of the mind, and it's part of kind of an animalistic mind, a compulsive mind. I've heard of it called as like the brain stem, lizard brain, that it's not actually part, like physically, where there's a picture of the brain, you know, it looks like a big cauliflower on top of a stem, that the reason we say even higher brain is it's literally higher up there, the more wise neocortex or whatever. We don't have to be brain scientists to even have to understand this, but it actually is located in a higher space in the physical brain, in the mind and the matter. Whereas the brain stem is down lower and it's much more rudimentary, and it's what animals actually have too. So we're operating on something that can just feel animalistic. Just you can kind of almost remember or tell yourself, animal. You know, I'm eating like a wild wildebeest. Okay? And that's somehow the light that is beeping, or the light that's on, or the part of the brain that's lit up, maybe we could say, is that part. There's an intense drive, and that can be associated with surviving. So even if you feel like it's not threatening, in fact, it's more threatening maybe to you that you are eating too much, right? That's usually the threat, it seems, to the logical brain. But you can just sense the feeling that's a pull and that feels insistent. I have to have this. I must. I cannot stop. I talk about there being a few different key thoughts or beliefs that we need to question in this Eating Peace ebook that I wrote a few years ago. And the very first one is, this is urgent. Urgency. The feeling of urgency and all the thoughts that accumulate or run or trigger or spark feelings of urgency. Compulsions and cravings feel urgent to just fix them and get rid of them, get them over with, make it so that they can relax and no longer have this intense craving. Actually eating the food when we're super hungry feels urgent. It's urgent that I get some food. So noticing that urgency, noticing it, and interrupting it. We're interrupting it as a perspective, as an overall perspective. Because the one that's running that, like that lizard brain kind of energy that's running, I have to have it, I'm going to get it, I must do it, and I'm going to eat it, and no one can get in my way. That one, those kinds of words, that kind of feeling can be interrupted. It's fun to imagine, like, in fact, if suddenly you heard a huge, loud noise that frightened you a little bit, you would stop everything and you would go on alert and move to the next thing that was even more urgent. If there was more of a direct threat, you would stop eating. It's not like you're such a zombie that you can't stop eating no matter what's going on. If there was a knock on your door and your mom was coming for a visit, unexpectedly all of a sudden, you would stop. If you were doing your snack graze eating in your kitchen and you were like stuffing your face, eating, and then that happened, you would just stop. So you're capable of stopping. That's what's wonderful to notice. You are capable of stopping that urgent feeling. And it only takes a second of interruption to begin to relax and notice that you are okay and you can wake yourself up. So I just shared with this woman this very thing. Just see if you can notice and wake yourself up in the middle of that hungry eating that doesn't want to stop, that winds up where you feel nauseated. Before you get to the nausea, try to slow down. If you need to set an alarm to go off in the middle of your meal, or when you notice yourself starting to eat, I know that it seems like it might be unlikely, but why not try it? I know the rebellious mind that thinks this is urgent doesn't ever want to set an alarm and will never stop. You can even say to it, you can keep going in 5 minutes or in 60 seconds even. You can keep going. But right now, we're just going to stop a second because I'm experimenting with what works. So you can let your mind know that, just to calm it down a little bit. You could be amazed at what happens if you stop for only 60 seconds when you have that urgency feeling, emergency, urgent, right? You can be amazed at what you're capable of not doing or doing, relaxing, amazed by it. Here we thought it was impossible and we would never be able to, but you can. The body always wins. The body, what I mean by that is the brain and the mind will not win if you overeat or if you purge, if you're somebody who vomits or overexercises or pushes yourself in that kind of way. The brain will say, it's okay, I can just keep eating and eating when it's got that story that I will be more comfortable if I keep eating. I don't want to stop. I have to follow this craving. I can't stand it if I stop. The only way to meet urgency is to go fast and run. If it's urgent, I need to run with my mouth and my teeth, my chewing and my eating. But that's not true. It's just not true. So the way to question something, question it intellectually, but then feel what it's like to notice that it is not true, that you have to eat something, especially when you're not hungry. You can even question that thought when you are hungry. You don't have to eat. Isn't that interesting? Who would you be without your story of urgency? Who would you be without your story that this whole eating thing is so severe and such a big issue and such a word like to get the food is an emergency? Who would you be without that thought? It might not feel so much like you are either all or nothing. So this woman said she was going to try it. She had never even thought in the middle of eating of pausing, ever. Just something it didn't even occur to her to pause and slow down. Most of the thoughts in her mind were about how she just has to get a handle on it. This is completely out of control. She needs to limit and weigh and measure her food, and then she'll know when to stop. That's the extreme opposite. That's not necessarily either. Total lack of trust of mind, body, spirit, and everything about it. Total lack of trust of that. So let's just come back and see if a simple 60-second pause can slow us down enough and catch us so that we can say, is it true that I need to keep eating? So just slow down and see what happens today. Just question that urgent thought. Really, you could be absolutely stunned. So you can ask yourself, if you find yourself going more days after you've listened to me and watched this video, and you aren't ever stopping, wow, I must be really disturbed about stopping, really rebellious. You only get rebellious when you are really ultimately very anxious about trying this. Maybe part of you just doesn't want to have it be that simple, or doesn't want to give up this thing, or you're scared for other reasons, and that's okay too. We can go more into those maybe in the next videos. So just noticing there's a lot of different ideas here, but that main one about the emergency is a huge one. So you have to respond to your emotions. You can't handle your emotions. You have to move fast. Is it true? Who would you be without that story? I do not have to move with a panic. I do not have to respond like it's an emergency. Everything is safe. I am okay. All right, let me know how it goes. Lots of love.